All right, here we go with the last half of Standard 6. We are going to begin with Standard 6D. You're going to be able to explain the political, religious, and social ideas of the Enlightenment and the way in which they influenced the founders of the United States of America. All right, some essential understanding. You need to know that the Enlightenment thinkers believed that human progress was possible through the application of scientific knowledge and reason to issues of law and government. Enlightenment ideas influenced the leaders of the American Revolution and the writing of the Declaration of Independence. So the Enlightenment, it's going to apply reason to the human world as well as to the rest of the natural world. It's going to stimulate religious tolerance, and it's going to fuel democratic revolutions around the world. So at this time period, there are two views on government. The Enlightenment started from the key ideas of two English thinkers in the 1600s. The first one we have is Thomas Hobbes, and notice I've got my frowny face right next to Thomas Hobbes. Then we have John Locke. Notice my happy face next to John Locke. Both men had experienced the political turmoil in the early 1600s, but came to very different conclusions about the government and nature. All right, Thomas Hobbes. You need to know that he wrote a book called Leviathan in 1651. And the ideas that he wrote about were that humans exist in a primitive state of nature and consent to the government for self-protection. He believes that absolute monarchy is the best form of government and that humans are evil and they must be controlled. The reason why I had the frowny face next to Thomas Hobbes on that previous slide is because Thomas Hobbes is different than the rest of the Enlightenment thinkers you're going to learn about. He thinks that humans are evil. So I like to think Thomas Hobbes is the hater. So that's why I had the frowny face. Okay, so his idea was a social contract, and he believed that for people to escape a bleak life, that they had to hand over their rights to a strong ruler. Not just any ruler, but an absolute monarch. So a king or a queen with absolute power. And in exchange for giving up their rights to the government, the people would receive law and order. And this is called a social contract. All right, so right now you need to open up your textbook. It says 195, but you're going to have to change this page number to say 629. So 629, and you need to fill out this slide. All right, so John Locke is our second person. John Locke's going to write a book called Two Treatises on Government in 1690. And his big idea is that people are sovereign, that they are free, and that the people consent to the government for protection of their natural rights. And a couple of slides ago, next to John Locke, I had the happy face, the smiling face, and that's because John Locke, he's a lover. All right, he's the good person we need to know. And in fact, he influences a lot of what the United States of America was founded upon, such as we have our natural rights. And John Locke had said we have three natural rights. They are life, liberty, and property. And that the purpose of government is to protect these rights. And this power is given by the consent of the governed, who have the right to rebel if these rights, these natural rights, are not protected. All right, the philosophers advocate reason. The Enlightenment reached its height in the mid-1700s, and the center of the movement was in Paris, France. Philosophers were the social critics of the period who believed that people could apply reason to all aspects of life. So on these next two slides, you need to open up your textbook to page 630. And on page 630, you're going to come and see the 5 core beliefs of the philosophers. They are reason, nature, happiness, which is on the next slide, progress, and liberty. So you need to make sure to fill those out. All right, our other Enlightenment thinkers. We have Voltaire. Voltaire is going to write a book called Candide in 1756. Candide's ideas were that religious toleration should triumph over religious fanaticism or passion, and he also believed in the separation of church and state. Voltaire is the one that we give credit to for coming up with that idea of freedom of speech. All right, and a quote from his book says, "I do not agree with a word you say, but will defend to the death your right to say it." So maybe not agreeing with what somebody says, but to be able to have the right to say what you want, that is what Voltaire will fight or defend to the death for your right to say it. I also like to remember Voltaire and voice. Voice starts with the letter V, just like Voltaire, and he had that idea, the freedom of speech, being able to voice what it is that you want. All right, so what is this idea of separation of church and state? It's the idea that religion and government remain separate and do not influence each other. If you have freedom of religion, you cannot make religion part of the government. It would be absolutely impossible to include all religions equally. All right, next up we have Montesquieu. Montesquieu, he writes a book called On the Spirit of Laws in 1748. His ideas is that the best form of government includes a separation of powers into three branches of government, and they are executive, judicial, and legislative. And these are the three branches of our government here in the United States of America. I like to remember Montesquieu, which has three syllables, Montesquieu, and the three branches of government. So Montesquieu with three syllables and the three branches of government. Here's a nice diagram of our separation of powers. We have here in the United States that our Constitution has given the three separate branches their own little homes. So we have the legislative branch, which is housed at the U.S. Capitol, and that includes our Congress, which is broken down into the House of Representatives and the Senate. And then here we have our executive branch. It's housed at the White House, and in there we have the president and the vice president. And the last one, our last house, the judicial branch, it's housed at the Supreme Court. And that is where our Supreme Court judges are. All right. Our last Enlightenment thinker is Jean-Jacques Rousseau. He is very French. He writes a book called The Social Contract in 1762. And this is kind of like Hobbes' social contract, but it's different. It is more geared to how we envision the social contract to work in the United States of America. So it is where a government is a contract between rulers and the people. So unlike Hobbes, Rousseau felt that a social contract is an agreement among free individuals to create a society and government, and that legitimate government came from the consent of the governed. So this is a government for the people, by the people. Okay, the influence of the Enlightenment. We are going to have the Enlightenment ideas. They are going to fuel revolutions in both the Americas and in France. We are going to have Thomas Jefferson be influenced by our Enlightenment thinkers, primarily John Locke, and he's going to write his Declaration of Independence, which is going to incorporate a lot of those Enlightenment ideas. We are also going to have our Constitution of the United States of America and our Bill of Rights both incorporate Enlightenment ideas as well. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so we are going to do some thought bubble heads on our Enlightenment thinkers. You are going to do 3 pictures in color for each of the 5 Enlightenment thinkers we just talked about: Hobbes, Locke, Voltaire, Montesquieu, and Rousseau. And inside those heads, you're going to have 3 pictures for each one. One picture is going to be the book of each person, what they wrote. And then the other 2 pictures are going to be about their ideas and maybe what they influenced. All right, so we are going to continue this little bit here on the next set of notes. See you guys later.